What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our top must-own running back handcuffs for the 2023 fantasy football season. Basically, these are the guys that if something happens to their respective starters, injury or otherwise, they will be thrust into league-winning roles, so make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree? What other names will you put on this must-own running back handcuff list, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's get into it. As you can see, we have got our 2023 fantasy football rankings pulled up here via fantasypros, and we're going to be looking specifically at the running back position. So let's kick this thing off. Like I said, we're looking at running back handcuffs. These are guys that obviously right now are either in complementary but typically backup roles, but they have a lot of proven talent, and if the respective starter on that team goes down or is unavailable for some reason, then you are looking at somebody that will be a top-end running back for that duration of time. So we're going to kick this off naturally lower down on this list because we're going to be looking at backups, right? So we're going to start with the number 26 running back on this list. That is David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. Now, this one's a little bit of an intriguing one, I would say, because look, everybody's losing their mind over Jahmyr Gibbs. The Detroit Lions drafted him in the first round. They were super high on him, things like that. But honestly, I think this is going to be a pretty close running back by committee. The Detroit Lions also just paid David Montgomery in free agency. And I think it's going to be a situation where, honestly, at the end of the year, both guys could come up with pretty similar stats for fantasy purposes, especially if we're talking standard format leagues where I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to see as much value in that pass catching role that a lot of people are assuming he's going to be thrust into. So for that reason, I really don't think that the disparity between the rankings in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery should be this much to begin with. But since Montgomery is going several rounds after Jahmyr Gibbs, and people are anticipating that Gibbs will steal the show, Montgomery fits this category. And because of that, look, I think he's going to be one of, in terms of the list of running backs that we list off, he's going to have standalone running back value compared to some of these other running back handcuffs. You know, he's a proven commodity. He's done it with the Chicago Bears. He's been a lead running back there. He's been a reliable fantasy option, at least when the Bears offensively knew what they were doing, and he's proven that he can also be a pass catcher on top of that. He's an underrated pass catcher. The Detroit Lions have a good offensive line. You know, he's an experienced running back. The Detroit Lions did pay him, you know, a decent chunk of change, and without DeAndre Swift, it's pretty much Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So if something happens to Gibbs here, then Montgomery, I think he's going to, I mean, honestly, there's a reason why he's the first name on this list. He's got the highest upside probably out of any one of these running back handcuffs because he will be thrust into that spotlight. We know that he can perform. I mean, for God's sakes, he's been the primary running back for the Bears up until this offseason. And it's not like he's an old guy or somebody that's dealt with serious injuries. So to me, David Montgomery is somebody that's definitely going to be a target if you were looking to lock up some handcuffs later on. But even honestly, if you want to invest in this Detroit Lions backfield, I'd much rather just take a shot on David Montgomery as opposed to Jahmyr Gibbs at their current ADPs. But let's continue to move on here a little bit lower on this list. We look at A.J. Dillon of the Green Bay Packers. Comes in at the number 33 overall running back compared to Aaron Jones, who's at 15. Now, I've been on record saying that I'm out on Aaron Jones this year, you know, unless it's pretty good value or something like that. To me, the biggest reason has been the departure of Aaron Rodgers and what I think is going to lead to a, you know, significant downward swing offensively for everybody on this squad. But on top of that, the fact that the Green Bay Packers also have A.J. Dillon, right behind Aaron Jones, and a pseudo running back by committee. But again, similar to what the Detroit Lions are looking at, if Aaron Jones, the top guy at the moment, goes down, then A.J. Dillon becomes super, super valuable. And look, he's going to have standalone value similar to David Montgomery again here. Probably one of the last names on this list that will be in that category. But he's going to be a vulture in the red zone, a high touchdown upside. While Aaron Jones is on the field, A.J. Dillon, the pass catching upside won't be huge. I will admit that. But, I think they're going to see similar types of carries. We saw it last year. Both guys finishing a game with like 10, 11 carries apiece. But if Aaron Jones goes down, boy, oh boy, A.J. Dillon as the backup here is going to see insane volume. And look, I admit, all those worries that I have about Aaron Jones, they're not disappearing all of a sudden. You've still got Jordan Love at the helm of this ship. And, the Packers could find themselves down offensively and abandoning the running game because of that. But the difference is A.J. Dillon is going to be the guy, and he's going to see so much more volume that volume is going to naturally make up for a lot of those things. Look, if Aaron Jones was the only guy for the Green Bay Packers and they didn't have an A.J. Dillon breathing behind him, kind of breathing down his neck, then I'd be a lot higher in Aaron Jones, but that's just not the case. So because of that, A.J. Dillon here also makes this list. And I do think, honestly, sooner rather than later, he's going to be a guy that's kind of handling the starting running back position for the Green Bay Packers. But continuing to move on here, we kind of get to the first name I'm really, really excited about at number 36, Samaje Perine, because I think David Montgomery and A.J. Dillon are kind of, no-brainers, if you will. But Samaje Perine, I think a lot of people are sleeping on for the Denver Broncos. And to me, this has everything to do with the Javonte Williams injury from last year, ACL, and honestly, a significant ACL where it affected several other ligaments. So because of that, folks, Javonte Williams, I think it's honestly a pipe dream for him to be 100% like he was last year immediately in week one. We've seen it with other guys, significant injuries. Think of J.K. Dobbins, think of Cam Akers. I understand there's some, Achilles injuries in there, so that's different, understood. But with Javonte Williams, a significant injury, compare him to J.K. Dobbins, who had something similar. Things get complicated when so many different areas are impacted in the knee. And it doesn't matter that Javonte Williams is saying, yeah, I feel really good, things like that. This is all off-season speak. It doesn't matter right now if the coaches are saying these things. What matters is, once the preseason comes, who's getting those carries? How do they look getting those carries? And right now, there's a reason why the Javonte Williams ADP is pretty low to begin with. But Samaje Perine, folks, I think he is going to, at least during the start of the season, and this is assuming very, very optimistic prognosis for Javonte Williams, where he can kind of come back to what he was prior to the injury at some point during the season. Samaje Perine, for at least half of the 2023 year, I think is going to arguably be the top running back for the Denver Broncos. And not enough people are, I feel like, investing in him that way. He was a proven commodity with the Cincinnati Bengals offensively when Joe Mixon was out. And I think he can do the same here for the Denver Broncos. High pass catching upside, something that I'm very, very excited for, especially in those PPR formats. And again, I think we're just going to see it naturally. Williams is not going to see that volume that we expect, or that some people expect, I should say. I don't expect that. He's not going to have that burst. He's not going to have that shiftiness, that agility, that acceleration, that ability to cut on a dime. And ultimately, those are things that are going to hurt him, hurt the offense. And because of that, Samaje Perine will kind of rise to the top of this roster, in my opinion. For that reason, probably the name on this list that I'm the most excited about as far as running back handcuffs are concerned. Let's move on, though, here. We are looking at Jamaal Williams for the New Orleans Saints. And I'm including Jamaal Williams here because, obviously, of the possible Alvin Kamara suspension. If it comes that Alvin Kamara isn't going to be suspended, Jamaal Williams, not as exciting, but I think a lot of people at this point are anticipating some type of suspension for Kamara. The question is, when will it happen and how long will it be, stemming from his Pro Bowl incident a couple years back now. So with that being the case, Jamaal Williams could end up being the plain old starter for the New Orleans Saints for at least a couple of games, 3, 4, 5 games at the start of the year. And that's going to be pretty valuable. He can catch the football. He's utilized very well by the Detroit Lions as a red zone guy, high touchdown upside. So, the New Orleans Saints brought him in with that idea. I think the New Orleans Saints offense is going to be much, much better with Derek Carr there as well. So, again, if this suspension plays out like a lot of people anticipate, Jamaal Williams definitely, for that reason, makes this list. Then moving on, we've got Elijah Mitchell of the San Francisco 49ers. And this one is obviously a direct correlation to Christian McCaffrey's injury history. And the fact that, look, the 49ers utilize Christian McCaffrey so many different ways. They use him obviously as a running back, but also as a pass catcher. So just because of that, that's going to increase the possible opportunities for him to get injured. We've seen him with several injuries in Carolina, and Elijah Mitchell is a proven commodity. He was producing for the 49ers prior to Christian McCaffrey coming in while he was healthy. Looking back at his rookie season, the 49ers have a solid offensive line. And even though, they've gone to that running back by committee before, Elijah Mitchell is head and shoulders above, I would say, all the other backup running backs behind him. So I think if you're a Christian McCaffrey owner, you definitely have to invest in Elijah Mitchell at some point in time, knowing that you essentially invested a top 3 or a top 5. A lot of people are drafting Christian McCaffrey first overall, period. So a top 3 pick in Christian McCaffrey, you better invest a pick in Elijah Mitchell as well later on. And because of what the 49ers can be offensively, how successful they can be, I think there's going to be some weeks where Elijah Mitchell gets more run than anticipated as far as carries are concerned. So if something, God forbid, happens to Christian McCaffrey, well, then Elijah Mitchell is going to be somebody that is going to be a very, very hot waiver commodity. But then finally, coming in at number 49 here on this running back list per Fantasy Pros is Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this one has a lot to do with Najee Harris and how I personally view him. I don't think he's anything super special. I think he's been fantasy viable because he's gotten the volume. I think he's a perfect example of volume is king. But Jaylen Warren has been closing the gap between himself and Najee Harris. You've heard coaches rave about Jaylen Warren. When Najee Harris hasn't been available in certain situations, Jaylen Warren has stepped up. Now, to be fair, Najee Harris hasn't suffered any significant injuries so far in his early NFL career. But, there's talks about Jaylen Warren potentially being the better running back out of the two. So I don't think that that's going to all of a sudden flip and Warren is going to be the starter here, or it's going to be a 50-50 split considering, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they invested high draft capital in Najee Harris. But Jaylen Warren is somebody that I'm really high on. You can see here, he's almost outside the top 50 running backs. So he ain't going to cost you all that much. That's the beautiful thing about this one. He's the lowest name on our list. And volume-wise, without Najee Harris, he's going to inherit that volume. I think he's a better overall running back. Now, he does have similar concerns like a Najee Harris. I just don't quite believe in that Pittsburgh Steelers offense. I am not a Kenny Pickett believer, so there is that aspect of it. But considering how much you have to invest in him, or I should say how little, I think Jaylen Warren is a very, very viable fantasy handcuff for this 2023 season. But with that, we wrap up our breakdown of the top 2023 fantasy running back handcuffs. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. And if you did, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin and continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree with this breakdown? Who else would you put on this list and why? along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.